Hello again, fellow audiophiles. I am Wave Theory, and I have on my head here the double-sided Modhouse Tungsten, which is still on loan to me from Mimic Audio as facilitated by Ryan at Modhouse Audio. And I bring this re-review of the double-sided edition to you specifically because in talking with Ryan at Modhouse Audio, we realized that I might be having a rare but possible issue with the ZMF Caldera hybrid pads on the double-sided tungsten. So Ryan sent me a couple of different adapter spacers. Okay, a couple different types here, which we'll get into. And with one of these adapter types in particular, I thought that the hybrid pads and that adapter type on the double-sided tungsten basically pulled the tungsten even with my $2,000 reference headphone, the Hi-Fi Min HE1000 SE, in terms of overall technical performance, meaning that they perform basically at the same level and they just sound a little bit different. So the tungsten becomes a legitimate alternative if you have a problem with the sound signature of the HE1000 SE. So, why do I say that? Stick around after shameless self-promotion to find out.
Hello. I'm one of the reasons that Wave Theory can't spend all of his money on audio gear. He wants you to know that your support is vital for keeping the channel running. So if you enjoy Wave Theory's bussin' review riz and no-cap review style and want to encourage him to stay in the basement so I don't have to listen to his dad jokes as much, like the video and subscribe to the channel. You can also send him a donation on PayPal or sign up for the Patreon. Links are in the description. Now on to the review.
All right, the story. Why are we here? Well, I published a review of both the single and double-sided tungstens at the end of March of 2024. I filmed this here near the end of May of 2024, so about 2 months later. After my review of the tungsten, I was talking with Ryan at Modhouse Audio, the designer of the tungsten, and, he was saying that, some of the things that you are describing, you meaning me, some of the things that I was describing about my experience with the tungsten sounds like what can happen in the rare circumstances where the seal against the side of the head is a little bit too tight and the acoustic energy generated by the drivers cannot escape into the surrounding environment quickly enough such that there is a pressure buildup between the headphone driver and the eardrum. And this can have a couple of consequences. One, you can just feel a buildup of pressure on the eardrums. Two, there are sonic consequences to that. Okay, if there is an increased amount of pressure between the driver and the ear, then when the driver tries to excurse, in other words, vibrate towards the ear, it's going to push against higher pressurized air than is on the other side of it, and that's going to restrict its motion a little bit towards the ear. And yeah, that's going to have some sonic consequences. You're probably going to lose a little bit of resolution and detail retrieval. You're probably going to lose a little bit of dynamic impact, and it can also just mess with the sound generally. So, when I initially reviewed the double-sided tungsten, the hybrid pads are the stock pads for the single-sided version, and I did swap them. Okay, the stock pads for the double-sided are the Ultra Perf, also made by ZMF here, and I really preferred these pads with the double-sided over the hybrid. Because when I initially put the hybrid pads on, the double-sided just sounded warmer, but just really bloated and sloppy and boomy in the mid bass and all of that, and it just kind of sounded congested as a result, and I just did not like that result. There was a lot more clarity and all of that with the Ultra Perf pads and that sort of thing. And that in particular was what Ryan was picking up on when he and I started talking a little bit more about what I was experiencing, and he had also been talking to Axel Grell of former Sennheiser fame, like the designer of the Sennheiser HD600 series and the HD800 series and so forth, about the acoustic impedance that can happen when you get that pressure buildup between driver and ear. And so Ryan said about saying, well, if some people are experiencing that with the tungsten. Can we find a way to relieve that pressure and get some of that lost sound quality back? And he came up with a couple of ideas. This is not the best presentation of this. Sorry, Ryan, because these are adhesive. I had to peel them off of here and then like take them off again and try to put them back on the plastic holder. But anyway, what we have here is what he calls a slotted vinyl adapter. Basically, we just get this thin ring of vinyl material that is adhesive on the back side here, and it just sticks in around the outside of the driver like that between the baffle and the ear, and then the ear pad goes right in on top of it. Okay, but notice this slot down here at the bottom. What this ring does is it intentionally makes the pad stand off of the baffle here by the thickness of the vinyl adapter here, and then also intentionally provide a vent right here for acoustic energy to escape. Okay, so that's one option. Going even further into that same idea are these slotted metal adapters, which, if I had to guess, somewhere maybe around 1/2 to like 7/10 of a millimeter thick. I didn't actually measure it, but just kind of eyeballing it, I think that's probably what we're looking at here in terms of the thickness. And then we have multiple vent slots here on them. Does the same kind of thing. Sits right on top of the driver between baffle and ear pad, and intentionally breaks a seal to provide some escape for the acoustic energy. We see more vents on this one, and also because it's thicker, right? This one allows more of the acoustic energy to escape more quickly than the vinyl ones here. All right. So first of all, if you are interested in these and you are a tungsten owner, Ryan says he will provide you with these free of charge, provided you don't ask him to paint them. If you want him to paint them, I don't know what he's going to charge for that. He didn't tell me, but I don't think there's any point in doing it because they completely disappear from sight once they are installed. I'll show you how to install these because they're really easy to pull out if you want. Again, these up here are adhesive, but literally all you do here is you take the vents, you point them towards the bottom of the ear cup. Okay, so you have like the cable entry slots here at the bottom, right? And then just literally you just line them up with the screws with those slots pointing downward basically until it snaps into place there. Okay, same thing over here. Okay, really well made. Then, okay, got to remember here, so the thick part needs to go. Okay, then you just take the pads and just literally line them up like you always do. And when they don't twist, they're in place. Okay, there it is. All right, and so it creates just a little bit more space in there, and then again, the venting on the bottom allows some of that acoustic energy to come out a little bit more quickly. And again, the adapter in there just completely disappears. So, like, I mean, take the free ones. Don't make Ryan do the extra labor and paint them because it's kind of pointless, okay? All right, so what do these do for the sound, and like how do I know that, and then how big of an impact is it? Okay. To test this, I use the Black Ice Audio Aries all-in-one, which drives these reasonably okay, and then I also use my Vielectric HPA V281 amplifier fed by my Chord Hugo 2, and DAC amp, and matching 2Go streamer. All right. What I noticed when I put these adapters in here is just, first of all, the metal ones, the ones that I just showed you and put in there right now, completely relieved that pressure issue for me. That uncomfortable buildup of pressure on my eardrum disappeared. Okay, that was gone. That was nice. All right. And I should emphasize that pressure on the eardrum thing is rare. This headphone with these pads specifically, and I think recently the Meze Empyrean 2 are the only headphones that have ever done this to me. So it is very rare. I mean, I've, reviewed like over 100 headphones now. Okay, so 2 out of over 100 have done this to me. So one, it's rare, and just the right, or dare I say wrong, combinations of things has to happen of your head size and shape the pad size and shape, the clamp force, and all of that all has to come together in such a way that the seal around the side of your head gets tight enough to where your eardrums start to become sensitive to the increase in pressure that builds up inside the ear cavity here, and then also down your ear canal. 2, so that, I mean, that's a rare combination of things, okay, first of all. So let's emphasize that. 2, not everyone is sensitive to these pressure buildups, okay? So even if they could happen, if the physical conditions are there, it is not a guarantee that this is going to happen to you. But it did happen to me, okay? And it turns out that in talking with Ryan and him talking to others that have had similar issues that I have had, not just with these headphones, but just generally with people who are sensitive to this pressure buildup, like he said that what I was experiencing sounded basically exactly like what he was hearing from everyone else who had experienced this. So it's apparently a thing. It's uncommon, and it's really cool of him to have a solution to that issue for this headphone. Okay. So back to what it does then sonically. For me, that pressure relieved with the metal slotted things there. These vinyl sticker type, decal type, helped. The pressure did not build up nearly as quickly as it did without any spacer in there. And again, only with the hybrid pads. The MicroPerf, I did not have this issue on that I know of. Okay. Anyway, these did not relieve the pressure as much or as quickly. Like, it still happened, it just took a little bit more time for it to build up. Okay, but the metal ones, completely gone. All right, so that was one thing. The sonic benefits then, the dynamics became a lot more noticeable, a lot less muffled. Subtle changes in volume, or things like if a drummer hits his drums, his or her drums, with different intensities, that comes through better, okay, with the metal spacers in there. An example to me would be the track Rain on the Scarecrow by John Mellencamp. I have the version from his Images and Words Greatest Hits collection. I can link to it in the description below. In that track, there's like an actual drummer can probably correct my language here, but there's what I would describe as like a stair-stepped drum swell at the beginning of the track. The drummer like double hits, I think he uses both sticks on the same drum, okay? He double hits the snare really loud right away. He just bam, really loud, and then 2 more successive thump, thump, okay? But the second and third hits get a little bit quieter with each one. Then he comes back again, hits that snare drum really hard with an initial impact, harder yet than the first time he did it, and then backs it off a little bit with each successive hit. Then does it again. He goes through that process about 4 or 5 times of really aggressive drum hit, slightly softer, then followed by 2 successively slightly softer drum hits. Keep going back and ratcheting up the overall intensity every time until he just starts laying down the rhythm of the track. With the metal slotted, the metal vented spacers in here, though that difference in intensity of drum attack was very clear through this headphone and equaled my HE1000 SE in terms of its ability to resolve and present those dynamic, impactful differences. Okay, the difference is not only in SPL, but also just like the aggression of it and the attack of it. Okay, was able to resolve that difference in a way that the lack of adapters with the hybrid pads didn't really do at all. And these only helped me just a little bit on that. Okay, the metal ones were definitely the best, okay, for me on there. So that was one thing that I noticed. The other thing that I noticed then, so I mean the dynamics just wake up and become more realistic and more price competitive, in my opinion, with those adapters. The other thing that I notice is like the detail retrieval comes back. This headphone becomes equally resolving, I would say, to the HE1000 SE, which is really saying a lot, because I have been harping that this is the most resolving headphone you can get for $2,000. I would say that under the conditions here that I'm describing with the Tungsten, it is a virtual dead heat with the HE1000 SE in terms of detail retrieval / resolution. Then that also helps with the spatial holography. The Tungsten is never going to sound as big and as grandiose as this Hi-Fi Man does, okay? But within its soundstage, which isn't tiny, I don't want you to think that it's claustrophobic or intimate or anything. It's just not as big and as grand as that Hi-Fi Man is. But within its soundstage, the three-dimensionality of it, the imaging, the separation, the depth, the layering, even the sense of height, okay, basically pulls even with what the HE1000 SE does. Really impressive. All right. Is there any downside to using these adapters? And yes, just a tiny one. Because the seal is broken, you do lose a little bit of sub-bass extension and presence. Now, I didn't notice that very much on the vast majority of listening material. And in fact, I had to go listening for it to be able to hear it. And one clear example where it came out is from, you guessed it, Mountains by Hans Zimmer, right? In that track, you have this descending bass line in there that just keeps going lower and lower and lower. And then when it bottoms out, it just rumbles for a little bit. This headphone with the adapters in there does roll off a little bit early. It doesn't dig quite as deep as the HE1000 SE or other headphones that, when well sealed, can do. But it's not poor either, right? It does not wreck the listening experience. It does not all that meaningfully change the enjoyment of the track. And honestly, if I didn't have something like this to directly compare this against, I probably wouldn't even notice that there was something missing. Okay, so yes, the bass extension and the sub-bass presence and rumble does disappear a little bit with that break and seal. It's not as bad as I thought that it might be, and so forth. And I think on most program material, you're just not even going to notice it. All right, so then summing it up, for me, using the metal slotted adapters in there, for one thing, increased the resolution and improved the overall dynamics and impact of the headphone beyond even what was coming from the microperf pads. Without really, with the ultra, I think I said microperf, the ultra perf pads. Okay, if you remember from my initial review, I really loved the treble presentation from the double-sided Tungsten with the ultra perf pads, and that may take just a tiny step back on the hybrid pads with the adapters, but the treble timbre and tonal balance and all of that on this one, even with the hybrid pads, is still among the best headphones on the planet, okay, in its ability to do that. So not a real big negative impact there. But back to the point at hand, the dynamics, the resolution, okay, the spatial holography and all that takes, I think, in a lot of ways, steps up even over what the Ultra Perf pads did without any adapters, okay? And in some, just makes the double-sided Tungsten a technical equal, an overall technical equal to what I think has been the technically most proficient and capable headphone at $2,000 for a good while now, ever since it was $2,000, okay, the Hi-Fi Man HE1000 SE. So basically equal technical performance, slightly different sounds. This one is going to be a little bit more dynamically impactful yet than this one is, and it's also brighter, okay? Bigger soundstage, but it's going to be brighter. Still very good treble tonal balance and all of that here, but brighter than this. So if you are one of those that just cannot handle the treble intensity of the HE1000 SE, no matter what you do, all right, then you now have a viable alternative at right about $2,000 US, okay, in the double-sided Modhouse Tungsten. Okay, and for my ears, with the hybrid pads and those adapters that Ryan will offer you for free, as long as you don't want them painted. Okay, and so that's saying something. So I mean, if I could keep this, I probably would. Okay, and the only reason that I wouldn't try really hard to keep it around and use as another $2,000 reference is just because it's still hard to drive. Right, using those adapters isn't going to suddenly make it a high efficiency headphone that's easy to power. Whereas like the HE1000 SE, part of the reason it is so valuable to me is that you can drive it with just about anything. Okay. Won't always sound good for synergy reasons, but in terms of power demand, this thing does not need all that much power. Makes it a really valuable reviewing tool for me. That's the one big downside with the Tungsten, is just that it is very hard to drive and there's a limited number of amps out there that can comfortably power it. But assuming that you have one, then for me, the hybrid pads and the metal adapters in there make it a true alternative to this. And if you've watched my channel, you know that that is very, very high praise. Okay. So thanks again to Mimic Audio and for Ryan at Modhouse for giving me such an extended loan of the Tungsten, both the single and double-sided. Thanks to Ryan for helping me work through that weirdness I was experiencing with the hybrid pads, because I learned something here. That pressure buildup is a thing, and that I'm sensitive to it is a pretty valuable thing for me to know, and I know it now. And if you have ever experienced that, then hopefully this will help you too. And specifically, if you experience it with this headphone, there are now 2 different levels of options for relieving that issue. Ryan says he likes this one. Okay, I don't think he has the pressure issue. He just prefers the sound hybrid pads plus this. Okay, but I needed the hybrid pads and the metal adapters. So to each their own on that. But again, thanks to Ryan and all of that. Okay, thanks to all of you for watching. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, do those things you do to support YouTube channels. Check out my Patreon, check out my PayPal, and so forth. Thanks again for watching, and as always, enjoy the music.